Alright, it's Beard making another team overview. Today is going to be Akihiko and Susan. And this team is quite something. It is one of the most ridiculous rushdown teams in the entire game, with some of the most obscene risk-reward on basic options of anything, as it gets incredibly high damage off of basically anything hitting. Like even a 6p hitting at full screen can be a death sentence. And it's incredibly quick about how it goes into these restore. Like Court plus assist can end up being nearly like 15k if you have meter resources and the confirms to actually hit it. So, as far as what Susano'o's assists are going to do for Aki, since he is generally going to be your point character with this team, as he has some of the most obnoxious point tools of any character, he of course is going to have 6p for Cork plus assist. This will be good at pretty much any range, and the very good active switch window allows for you to do things like the X Cork active switch, or say like 2B into B Cork AS, since that's a very good frame trap, or just general tools once you get in that can use the active switch. His 4P it's okay, because Aki doesn't really need help controlling the airspace in front of him, as his 2B is incredibly fast, and his JA is also incredibly fast and much bigger than it looks like it should be. So he doesn't really need this, but it is still a nice thing to have, especially since it can AS immediately since it's projectile. Susan's 5P is only really useful for Aki as combo fuel, as it does allow you to have enough time to weave, duck, and then D-dive, which is always nice. But it doesn't really serve a whole lot of purpose outside of that. As for what Aki's assists will do for Susan Point, they primarily serve as ways to just run offense geared towards getting Aki into doing a ton of damage. Outside of his 4P. His 4P is okay as an anti-air assist because of its speed, though it doesn't particularly cover a whole lot of space. His 5P locks down really well as it would give you easy time to convert. His 6P, if they block this, you just throw this out on them and they have to guess. Which, of course, it's all about trying to use it to enable Aki in a very strong offensive situation. Okay, as for how Susan really gets to enable Aki, it is outside of his assists. He has a lot of ways of doing it. The biggest offender of it is his 236B. This move is basically everything Aki could ever want in a move on his partner. It sets up unblockables, it moves across the whole screen very quickly, and it gives you more than enough time to build Cyclone even after you unblockable somebody with it. So you can just end up doing an unreal amount of damage off of an unblockable setup. Like, this is going to be like near 16k, and that's not even the optimal confirm, and that's, you can't block it. and it just does that. It's unbelievable what this team ends up doing. Because, like, even if, say, they get hit by 6P at this range, if you connect the B dive there, you are already at level 3 Cyclone, which means you just get to do 668 and you're already at level 5 without having to do any bad prorating moves other than Grand Viper. Which means you're getting like 9k without resources from that, which is incredibly low commitment, especially since Susan can kind of protect him if he ends up in danger with sword. So you just end up with a obscene amount of things that Aki wants provided all by the exact same move. When setting up an unblockable in the mid screen from a sandwich, you're going to want to do air dash back JB into 5A. The reason you have to do this is you can use C dive in the air to unblockable, but you have to TK it to frame perfectly or else Aki will go over the top of them, which is obviously not good because then you're going to whiff. You're not going to be close enough to extend pressure even if they block the entirety of Grand Viper. And you just wasted a bar and put yourself into meter lockout, so you're really bad situation there. So it's just better to do instant air dash back JB because it's much more consistent. As for the other ways he'll enable, if his JC off of like a buffered active switch with JB will give you enough time to build a little Cyclone. His throw actually having such a long throw animation means in some situations you can build all the way to 5 Cyclone if you can, like, as a confirm you will build 5 Cyclone because it is just that long of a throw animation. Normally I would really only just go for this because the damage difference isn't too big from there. You only lose like a couple hundred since you're not doing any 85 P2 Rekkas. But like just having that as an option is really insane since Susan's stagger throw is already incredibly good since he has plus 34A. So having this gigantic threat to back it up is really good. So the thing about setting up unblockables with this team is, okay, you're going to be using 5P because that has the least amount of hit stop other than 4P, but 4P is kind of stubby, so it might not reach in all situations, as well as 5P locks down for a long time. But you're gonna do 5AA because that's the best buffer, and you can threaten a jump cancel if they block 5A, and it true block strings in. So you go boom, and from the unblockable you do. That's optimal to do weave duck. You can do just duck into B dive, and that's a bit more consistent. So you lose out on a few hundred damage if you do that. Then you can also set up an unblockable with 2C, though it is pretty tight comparatively, but it does get higher reward if they're already conditioned to take the low. Whereas if they take the low with Grand Viper, they're not going to take a ton of damage since that move kind of has terrible P1. But if you don't want to be spending meter, it's a bit tighter, but you can unblockable with JC and then still go into B dive. with a duck beforehand, and it should end up being similar damage, but it's just a bit tighter to actually do, which can make it a little less practical in real matches, since you can end up in these situations out of weird scrambles sometimes with CC. Unfortunately, the thing about this team's Cork plus 6p is that on hit you don't really get a combo unless you're near the corner without burning CC. However, you can get very high reward if you do pop CC, as you can go into a unique form of B dive loops at full screen by looping Susano'o's 6p with B dive into 6-6, so it would look like, let me try this. Let me just see if I can get this right. Okay, you know what, I'm just gonna record me doing it later and insert it. Overall, I think this team is incredibly powerful. Even though the way it works is incredibly simplistic, it's just so obscenely strong with those things that it does that it really doesn't matter. It's not doing a whole lot because it doesn't need to. It can just do one thing and run a game over entirely in 2 or 1 interaction, just because it does something incredibly well that you can't really do anything about when it gets going. As a result, I think this team can take on pretty much anyone, even like matchups that can kinda deal with them, like Carmine is still just 1 hit away from you winning at pretty much any point in the game, so it is still capable in its worst matchups of just winning. I think it's an incredibly strong team, even within the context of the meta, and I think it's definitely a team that people need to play more of, which actually goes for a lot of Aki teams, but that's a different discussion.